Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. I'm at the camp talking to you from the bunkhouse because we're having a little Nova Scotia heat wave, which means it's going to get past 30 degrees. And currently no wind, which is really weird for us. We usually have got some offshore wind happening somewhere, but it's very still. The water is completely flat. So, several books to bring to you, which is really fun because I haven't had a week since December where I've been able to read even 2 books in a week, and that's usually my average, but right now I've read 4, so that really makes me feel good. The first one I read was A Small Zombie Problem by K.G. Campbell, and this is book 1 in I think just well, as far as I know, there's only 3 books in this series, but that's just what I saw at the shelves at the library, so there could be more. So we have got August. Oh, I should say it's a middle grade book, which of course just, are my favorite. We have got August and his aunt Hydrangea, and they are from a family that had at one point quite a lot of wealth because they had made this DuPont hot sauce, like Tabasco sauce. And so family fortunes and so on. But the descendants of the inventor of the hot sauce were not particularly interested in continuing the family business so much as spending the money. So they have gradually become poorer and poorer, but still have, this house. And then on the other side, we've got the Melvos, because Aunt Hydrangea's sister, Orchid, married someone in the Competitions family, and so she's now Mrs. Melvo and Orchid. Weird beginning to August's life is that Aunt Hydrangea is just scared of everything, and so August has never left the house. He's been homeschooled, and it's not an abusive situation. It's just that in her own fears of the world, she has transferred them onto August. And, so something happens that lets August leave the house. And in so doing, discovers that, in fact, they are not the last of the DuPonts. There's this Melvo family, which, anytime you see a last name that starts with M-A-L, they're the bad guys. And so the Melvos were reputed to have stolen the recipe and of the hot sauce and created their own hot sauce empire. And the reason theirs sold better than the DuPont family is because they had a little container that had a devil's head on the top. So, marketing wise, it was pretty smart. August discovers that he's got cousins, and so he's invited to the cousin's house, and Aunt Hydrangea can't keep him from going, and so she's got to let go of things. Well, Aunt Orchid wants something from August, and I don't want to give away all the details. She wants something. And August is unclear on how he's going to get it for her, but she strikes a deal, and he has to keep his end of the bargain. In amongst all of this story, we have got one of his ancestors has burst from her tomb and is a young girl. She died young. And is a young vampire. No, I'm sorry. Zombie. Yeah, right? Yeah, zombie. She's a young zombie. And so, but she's sort of a sentient zombie. She seems to be able to converse, and, she does pretty well for herself in terms of getting her needs met. Her eyes continue to fall out from time to time if she, gets bopped or something like that. And it's just a very sweet story. And what are they going to do with Claudette, who's, August looks an awful lot like her brother when Claudette was alive and had a young brother. And so she thinks that August is her brother, which is why she's attached herself to him. So it's a great fun story. There's a very clear divide between evil and good, and what the good guys should do, what the bad guys are doing, and how is the zombie going to fit amongst all of this? So it's just fun. I'm going to go back and get book 2 and 3, and really enjoy that little story. When we were in town, which is Liverpool for us in the summer, we also have South Shore library cards. And so that's where we go to the library to upload these videos. And it's a brand new building. It's really, well, I should say that the building is old. It's the old high school. But they have taken over about maybe a third of this old high school on the ground floor and created a really nice modern infill, and it has air conditioning. But it's just a really nice library. I think the number of books maybe has increased by some. I'm not sure. I didn't feel that the number of books had increased, but certainly the pleasure in being in the library had increased so much. And the few times we were there, because we go about 2, maybe 3 times a summer, we were generally the only people in the space. Well, this time there was a constant flow. And so I would say that there was up to 10 people in the library at any given moment for the time that we were there, which, that's great. I love a library, and I love if it's successful. So right adjacent to where I'm doing my uploading is the young adults, and they're calling it young people. I don't know why. Is adult the new bad word? I don't know. Anyways, I picked up this one, Jennifer Donnelly, and it's Beastly Beauty. And it's pretty close to the story of Beauty and the Beast in that we've got the same kind of impetuous, angry, asocial teenager who is then cursed and has 100 years to have someone fall in love with them, and that traditional Beauty and the Beast fairy tale structure. What's different is that the Beast this time is female, and not everybody in the court has fallen asleep for 100 years. It's sort of a slice in time. So the servants and the courtiers and all these people are still alive and doing their jobs. This castle is huge. It's self-sufficient. So it solves all the questions of where they're going to get food. So anyhow, Beauregard, that's his name. That's the hero of the story. He is a young person, was orphaned, and he had a younger brother that he had to give to a convent to look after him, because as a 10-year-old orphan, he could not look after his younger brother. And so Beau has been on the road for quite a number of years, trying to get the means to go back to the convent to rescue his younger brother, because his younger brother his health isn't great. But it's taken him quite a while, and his means of looking after himself is to be a thief. So he's a very skillful thief. He's a pickpocket and a trickster and a con artist, and he works with a gang of thieves. And this gang of thieves goes thundering through the forest. They're being chased by the lord of the manor, who's discovered they've been robbed, and things happen, and Beau gets abandoned in the castle. And who is the Beast? Well, the Beast is Arabella. I knew her name was very similar to, anyways, Arabella. And Arabella had a temper. 100 years ago, it was when things were not appropriate for young ladies to be anything other than just, paper mache dolls, really. And so her curse came down because she really wants to be a builder, an architect, an engineer kind of a person, but that was not encouraged, and her parents and other people are really giving her a hard time about this, and she comes into conflict with her future husband. It goes really badly. So she's got this curse on her, and over time, other men have come and gone in the castle, and they haven't really fallen in they may have fallen in love with her, but she hasn't fallen in love with them. It's she's forcing the issues, typical Beauty of the and the Beast kind of structure there as well. And then we've got the ending where they're up against the clock. 100 years is ticking, and there's quite an interesting denouement. There's I thought it was pretty good. The courtiers are really interesting. Like this again, if I give some details away, it could really intrigue you, but it could also spoil the joy of discovery. So there's a couple of things that have been inverted in the story. There's a couple of things that are more fully developed than typical Beauty and the Beast stories. They're going much more into the what is personal growth? Is Arabella's task to really become this persona that people wanted her to be 100 years ago, or is it to become her true self? And which is the self that Beau is falling in love with, and which is the self that is going to cure or undo the curse? So I think if you like a retelling of fairy tales, this is super duper good. And if you just like a sort of fun little romp through romance, this is good too. It's not like a romance the way Bridget Jones' Diary. It has romantic elements. I mean, obviously love is part of the components, but it's not enemies to friends. It's not really friends to friends. It's just kind of a gradual growing respect sort of love. So we don't have a whole lot of the high drama of, oh, does he love me? Doesn't he love me? Yeah, I don't like that. So we avoid that quite nicely. So yeah, Jennifer Donnelly, I have read one or two other of her books. I think it was Poisoned and A Northern Light that I read by her. But she's got 7 others that are mentioned in this book, and this book was published in 2024. Yeah, so that's probably, including this, that's about 8 books that if you like, Jennifer Donnelly is an author to go towards, and you will find her in the young people section. All right, the other book I finished. This has taken me 2 summers to read. I'm pretty sure I bought it on one of our Lunenburg trips on Steve's birthday. Started it, really enjoyed it. That was the summer I fell down the wall. I couldn't concentrate. This is a very intricate book. When I say that, I mean there are a lot of people coming and a lot of people going, and those people circle back, and we've got this house, this Baba Yaga's house. Now, Baba Yaga is a Russian folktale, depending on your point of view, heroine or evildoer. And she created a house on chicken feet that allowed the house to move. So some of the stories have got her escaping from a bad situation, and some of the stories have got her chasing people down and being the bad person in the story. So in this case, we've got about 100 years after the house has been created, and it has been willed by the last of the Baba Yaga families to 2 siblings. And we have got oodly-doo, Bellatine, there it is. It's like right on the first sentence, but I couldn't remember. Bellatine and Isaac, and they, in this story, Baba Yaga is Jewish. Now, I don't know whether that's true all the way back in history or not, that this is a Jewish folktale or not. I think it is, because one of the things that it says on the back is that the author, who did I tell you, Jenna Rose Nethercott, is retelling a lot of Jewish myths, and it's really, really well done. So I suspect the origin story was Jewish. Anyhow, Bellatine and Isaac are siblings whose parents ran a marionette puppet theater, and both kids didn't like what was there. It just was not for either of them. And Isaac becomes he's one of these people that can shape shift. He's kind of like Jim Carrey in a way. It's like he's got a musculature and a that he can just kind of morph into whoever it is that he's trying to mimic, and he's got a voice that can just he runs kind of parallel to the people that he's with, and he can just turn himself into who people want to see beside them, if that makes sense. And he uses that to manipulate his way as at one point he's riding the trains, and another point he's hitchhiking. He's just an itinerant traveler, and just picks up odd jobs. He doesn't have any magic or anything like that, so he has to live like the rest of us with food. But he's just got this skill set that means that he can manipulate and convince people to do what he wants, and so give him a ride, give him some food, that sort of thing. And he had a love interest that ended tragically, and that is what's kind of keeping him on the road, this grief, this long-term grief. Bellatane left the puppet theater that her parents ran for different reasons. She has been given fire in her hands, and so she's a woodworker, and she can carve pretty much anything, repair just about anything, but she doesn't understand this thing in her hands, and so it makes her very isolated and alone. She's got a very small circle of friends. Well, the two of them inherit this house, and the house walks or runs or plants itself if it's tired and just says, I'm not going any further. And in the unknown to pretty much anybody, because this house has been hidden for quite a while in a storehouse, is the Long Shadow Man. And he's the evil guy, and he's after the house because he needs this house to no longer exist in order for him to be fully manifest as an evil being, demon, pretty much. And he's got some pretty bizarre ways of reaching his goals, which is to capture the house. He's not so much interested in Bellatane and Isaac, but they're obstacles to what he really wants. And then there's another group of 3 who are musicians, and they have each encountered the Long Shadow Man, and it's been a bad situation, and so they are out to get him. They don't know what they're doing, but they're out to get him. It's complex. The plot is complicated. As I say, there's lots of ins and outs, so you have to really be paying attention as to whose point of view you are with. That's quite clear because each character is quite well delineated from the others, but you kind of have to pay attention to where in the story arc you are. And because if Isaac's run away again and you're in his head, it's sometimes he's in the past and sometimes he's not, and every once in a while Bellatane will have a memory thing. Most of the other characters don't have that sort of thing happening. Isaac and Bellatane's relationship is fraught. There's a lot of exploration by the author on things like grieving and loss and attachment and history, memory, what happens when memories are lost. You know, if something was really, we've got the Lest We Forget thing in North America. I appreciate the idea because it does address this question. If stories are lost, then we start to forget and we theoretically repeat ourselves. It's selective. That particular event in North America is selective. It's only from this, the army side of things. This is the opposite side. This is not the army side. This is the civilian side that we're exploring. What happens when the civilian stories get lost? And just how is memory, how are the stories kept alive and still telling the same story, but are relevant to today. So that's because there's a theater involved in some of the storytelling. That makes it kind of an interesting side quest for the characters to explore. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a book that should not be interrupted, because I picked it up somewhere again last winter, I think it was. Things were happening, and I just couldn't concentrate. So here at the camp, where is really quiet, I was able to just really focus down. I didn't go back to the beginning. It took me about maybe 30 pages to kind of, click back into the story. But basically, I suggest this is a book that you do in one read, without too many distractions going on. It is so well written, and the author has really got a flair for the detail. You get, if a puppet, for instance, is being described, then you can really see what the puppet looks like and where the strings are attached. And it's not overwhelming in detail in that there's an economy of detail, but it's very well described. And so I give this a 5 out of 5, despite taking 2.5 years to read it. Now, this last book I just finished this morning, The Guncle Abroad by Stephen Rowley. He wrote The Guncle, which I really enjoyed, and it's the same characters. Patrick O'Hara is back. It's 5 years since the previous story, and his brother Greg is getting married in Italy to a woman called Livia. The story centers around Patrick and his niece and nephew, Maisie and Grant. Maisie and Grant don't want this wedding to take place. They have not reconciled themselves to the loss of their mom, in the sense they don't want a new mom. Livia, there's nothing apparently wrong with Livia, except that it's two kids who are just not ready to have someone step into their mom's footsteps. Mom died in the previous book. That's not a spoiler. The whole point of the previous book was Patrick helping them through the first summer of their mom's death, and Dad has gone into rehab because one of the ways he had for coping with all the hospital visits and stuff was to take uppers, and has become addicted to certain kinds of pills, and so he's put himself into rehab in order to reclaim himself so that he can be the father. But he's used Patrick as a stopgap. So Patrick has custody of the kids for about 4 months. So we now are 5 years later. Patrick no longer has this temporary custody, but he's been asked to take the kids for several weeks to let Greg and Livia sort out the wedding plans, and just have some time together without kids, just to make sure everything's copacetic. So Patrick decides to take Maisie and Grant on a European tour. So how old are they now? They are 9 and 13. I wouldn't want to travel with a 9 and 13. 9-year-old, yeah. 13-year-old, depends on the kid. So Maisie is just at that moment in puberty. She hasn't quite received her period yet. So she's so hormonal. She's such a 13-year-old. And Grant, who's now 9-ish, 10-ish, he's just a delight. He's still got that innocence and enthusiasm, and just like quick wit, and he can really laugh at a joke, and he really gets on with Patrick, who loves wordplay. Maisie, on the other hand, she can sometimes take it or really leave it. So they're traveling through London and Paris and Vienna. Did they get to Milan? No, they didn't get to Milan. Then they end up in Venice, where the wedding is going to take place, and they reconnect with Greg and Livia, Dad and future mom. So it's the antics of the travel. Maisie and Grant are really well drawn. Patrick is going through a bit of a midlife crisis. He's turning 50. He decided to break up with his boyfriend because he feels that his boyfriend, who's about 8 years younger, shouldn't be burdened with this older man. A lot of self-pity going on there. Patrick's ego, while it seems huge, is quite small. He's easily deflected from self-confidence, I guess. But he's a pretty large personality. I laughed quite a bit through this book. I could have taken Patrick being diluted a little bit by the time we got to the last quarter of the book, especially once we are heading like Vienna to Venice and the time in Venice. I was just thinking, I think Patrick's storyline needed to thin out a little bit so that we could see some of the other characters that we've been hearing about in the first 3/4 of the book, get to know Greg and Livia a little bit more. And there are a lot of Italian relatives, and one of Livia's sister, Palmina, comes into play, and Patrick makes an awful lot of assumptions, and they're very self-centered assumptions, and I mean, everything gets sorted out in the end, but he gets a tiny bit tiresome towards the end. So I can't give this as good a rating as I did the first book, Guncle, but I do love this author's way of writing. He really has got a comedic approach. Well, so the other caveat I have with this book is that Patrick at 50 is making a whole bunch of references back to, so if he's 50, he's younger than me, so he would have been like sort of the 70s, 80s would have been his era for music and movies and so on. And so there are many references here. I've no idea what he's talking about. I can get some of the older ones, but anything that's kind of 80s, I don't get the references. So I think this book, unfortunately, will date, unless you're very good with what's that called? Contemporary music. No. Like what's, today's movies and videos and all that kind of business. Patrick Clooney, I kind of know, but if you were to ask me to put a face to it, I'd know. Gina Lollobrigida, yeah, I can do that. Shows my age. But I think because there are so many cultural references, this book isn't going to age too well. So if you're at all thinking about reading it, I'd read it sooner than later. But also it's a lot of fun. I'm going to, Stephen Rowley has got several other books that I didn't realize. I don't know why, because he's a well-marketed author. He's got The Celebrants, The Editor, Lily and the Octopus, and there's a new one coming out too, The Dogs of Venice. I think they are all books that are kind of searching the human condition in a way, but with an ear to what you call it? It's sort of like rom-com. It's not serious. It has a flippant approach, but not the explorations themselves, but the characters are somewhat irreverent. What's that? Self-deprecating, perhaps, but in a comic sort of way. Anyways, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. So Steve and I went to Lunenburg, but this is already at 30 minutes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get Steve when he's finished doing his chores. We're going to sit down and do a Lunenburg video, and I'll put that up in a couple of days after this one. So it should be, you should get an extra video this week, if all goes well. There's no guarantee, right? We're at the camp, and who knows what happens with electricity and internet and all that kind of bizbo. So I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.